Imagine you're standing at a crossroads, two paths before you. One leads left, the other right. You can only choose one. At least that's how life feels. You make a decision, and the other option vanishes into nothingness. A road not taken. But what if that's not true? What if both paths are taken? One by you, and one by another version of you. This is the strange, dizzying world of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, where reality doesn't collapse into a single outcome, but instead branches into multiple coexisting timelines. Every decision, every chance, every roll of the dice doesn't erase possibilities. It multiplies them. And at the heart of this branching universe lies one of the most chilling, exhilarating, and deeply personal ideas ever conceived: quantum immortality. The idea is simple, almost childlike, but its implications are cosmic. If reality constantly splits into many worlds, then in some branches you die, but in others you don't. And from your own perspective, the consciousness experiencing life, you only ever find yourself in the branches where you continue to survive. Which means that, subjectively, there may always be a version of you that never experiences death. From your point of view, you may never stop existing. You may be, in a sense, immortal. But let's not rush. To truly understand this, we need to step carefully. Quantum mechanics, at its core, is a theory of probabilities. Think about flipping a coin. Classically, the coin is either heads or tails, determined by forces we can, in principle, measure. But in quantum mechanics, particles like electrons or photons don't behave like that. They exist in superpositions, states that are combinations of all possibilities at once. Imagine the coin being both heads and tails, not just unknown, but literally both, until you look. The Copenhagen interpretation, which dominated 20th century physics, says that when you observe the system, the wave function, the superposition, collapses into one definite outcome. But Hugh Everett in 1957 suggested something radical. What if the wave function never collapses? What if instead the universe itself splits, branching into two versions, one where the coin lands heads, and one where it lands tails? Both outcomes exist, but in separate realities. This is the many worlds interpretation. Now let's make it personal. Suppose you're crossing the street. In one branch, you make it across safely. In another, a car hits you. If many worlds is true, both outcomes occur. From an outside God's eye perspective, there are universes where you survive and universes where you don't. But from your own first-person perspective, what happens? Here's where quantum immortality enters. Since your consciousness cannot experience being dead, you only ever find yourself in the branches where you survive. The other branches exist, but you never perceive them. Subjectively, it's as if you're guaranteed survival, because in every branch where you might die, there's another where you miraculously live. This is a terrifyingly seductive idea. It suggests that no matter how dangerous the situation, no matter how many risks you face, there will always be some branch where you make it through. From your perspective, you're always the lucky one. Imagine playing Russian roulette. Statistically, you're likely to lose. But in many worlds, in every branch where you pull the trigger, some universes end. Yet you, the conscious observer, only ever continue in the universes where you survive. To you, it feels like you can lose, though everyone around you sees the tragedy in their own branch. Let's ground this in real life. Think of those bizarre survival stories that make headlines. A person falls from an airplane without a parachute, crashes into the earth, and lives. Someone gets struck by lightning multiple times and survives each one. People walk away from accidents that should, by all normal calculations, have killed them instantly. To the rest of us, these are freak accidents, mind-blowing cases of luck, but from the perspective of quantum immortality, maybe they're inevitable. Maybe the person who survives is just living out the branch where they always live. while countless other versions of them perished silently in parallel worlds they can never experience. Now, think about déjà vu, that strange, eerie feeling that you've lived this moment before, walked this street before, heard these words before, even though you know you haven't. Neuroscience often explains déjà vu as a brain glitch, a short circuit in memory processing where the present gets misfiled as the past. But what if there's another explanation? What if déjà vu is the echo of branching worlds, tiny overlaps where your consciousness brushes against an alternate timeline? Perhaps in one branch, you did live this moment, turned your head a fraction earlier, said a word differently, and in another you're experiencing it again, with the faint ghost of recognition. It might be a glimpse across the branching pathways, a subtle reminder that you are not walking a single road, but an infinite highway of realities. And doesn't déjà vu feel like that? A glitch in the matrix, a reminder that something deeper is going on beneath the surface of ordinary life. If quantum immortality is real, déjà vu could be the subjective shimmer of your consciousness sliding between improbable branches, realigning itself each time you miraculously survive. Of course, this brings up an unsettling question. If you can never die from your own perspective, what happens as you grow older? Do you just keep surviving every possible illness, every accident, every catastrophe, until you find yourself living in increasingly improbable universes where you outlast everything? Imagine reaching 120, 150, 200 years old, your body frail, but somehow surviving strokes, cancers, accidents, disasters. Each time, the branch where you survive improbably is the one your consciousness follows. It paints a strange, almost nightmarish picture of immortality. Not eternal youth, not godlike invincibility, but endless survival against the odds, watching as everyone else in your life fades away in their own branches. It's worth pausing to recognize how deeply unsettling this is. Real immortality, in myths and science fiction, is often painted as either a blessing or a curse. The vampire lives forever but is haunted by loneliness. The immortal warrior never dies but watches civilizations rise and fall. Quantum immortality takes that idea and ties it to physics itself. It doesn't require magic, just the cold mathematics of probability. But let's test this idea carefully. Consciousness is slippery. What does it mean to say that you continue to survive? If you die in one branch, that version of you really does end. It's not fake, it's not less real, but your subjective experience, the feeling of being alive, cannot inhabit that branch. Instead, it flows along the surviving branches. In this way, your narrative thread never encounters its own end. An analogy might help. Imagine a video game with many save points. Every time you face a challenge, the game makes multiple save files, one where you succeed and one where you fail. If you're only allowed to keep playing in the saves where you succeed, it feels like you can't lose. But that doesn't mean the failed saves don't exist. They're just inaccessible to your experience. This leads us into one of the deepest mysteries. What exactly is the connection between consciousness and physical reality? If many worlds is true, then all possible outcomes exist. But why should your consciousness prefer the survival branches? Why not just flicker out in the dead branches? Proponents of quantum immortality argue that your consciousness cannot experience non-existence by definition. It's like trying to imagine what it's like to be unconscious. You can't. You only ever remember being awake. Quantum immortality applies this same logic to us. And perhaps déjà vu is what it feels like when the cat, or you, briefly sense the nearness of that other outcome. But is this science or philosophy? That's the tricky part. Quantum immortality isn't a testable scientific theory. It's more of an implication, a philosophical interpretation of what many worlds might mean for conscious beings like us. No experiment can confirm whether your consciousness jumps to the surviving branch, because, by definition, you'd never be able to report from the branches where you didn't. Still, this idea reshapes how we think about risk, luck, and survival. Have you ever narrowly escaped disaster? A car swerved and missed you by inches. You almost drowned, but someone pulled you out at the last second. From a purely statistical view, you were lucky. But from a quantum immortality perspective, it was inevitable that you'd be here to tell the story. The version of you that didn't make it is silent, unexperienced. Maybe déjà vu in those moments is your consciousness whispering, "You've been here before. You've lived this path already, in another world." Now let's push this further. If you're always guaranteed survival from your perspective, does that mean you should act recklessly? Should you step into traffic, gamble with your life, knowing you'll always end up in the branch where you live? Here's where the paradox deepens. Because while you may survive, the branches where you don't still exist, and for the people you love, in their branch, they lose you. To them, your death is real. To you, it never arrives. This creates a strange, almost solipsistic view of reality, where your own immortality doesn't extend to others. Each consciousness may only perceive its own survival, but in countless universes, everyone still dies. And then comes the nightmare scenario. Immortality not as a gift, but as a trap. Imagine outliving everyone you know. Imagine surviving catastrophes that wipe out civilization, finding yourself alone, drifting endlessly through improbably lucky branches, but always alive, always conscious. The universe itself decays, stars burn out, galaxies die, yet somehow there you are, clinging to existence, unable to experience an ending. In this light, quantum immortality is not a promise of eternal life, but the horror of never being allowed to rest. And in such an endless journey, déjà vu may not just be an occasional glitch, but a constant drumbeat, the sensation of reliving echoes of choices already made, worlds already walked. This flips our natural desire upside down. Most of us fear death. We long for more time. But consider the possibility that you might never get an end. You might live forever, not in comfort, but in isolation, in improbable survival. That's not heaven. That's an existential prison. And yet, perhaps, there's beauty here too. If quantum immortality is true, then life itself is indestructible from your perspective. No matter the risks, you will always find yourself continuing, in some form, in some world. Your story is unending, and maybe, just maybe, déjà vu is the universe's way of reminding you of this, a whisper from your other selves that your journey is branching, infinite and unstoppable. In the end, quantum immortality is not something we can prove or disprove. It's a mirror held up to our fears, our hopes, our longing for permanence. It forces us to confront the question, what does it mean to die, and what does it mean to live? Perhaps the strangest, most thought-provoking truth of all is this. Whether or not many worlds is real, the way we think about our existence changes when we consider it. Every close call, every stroke of luck, every moment we're still here becomes something miraculous, something that feels, in its own way, immortal. So, next time you cross a busy street, or hear a story of impossible survival, or suddenly feel that unsettling flash of déjà vu, ask yourself, are you already living out quantum immortality? And if so, is that a blessing, or the most haunting curse of all?